So, hello, and you've learned so far about if statements in our introductory series on Java, and now we're starting to look at other ways to make decisions. And so I call this Java Decisions Part 2. And the big question here is, if something better existed, would you switch? And it's a bit of a bad joke because what we're learning is something called a switch statement. And the switch statement, you're going to see, here's a little diagram of what it looks like. And what I'm hoping that you can see is that the structure is very similar to what you've already learned, in the sense that you've got a flow of code, and at some point the flow of that code is breaking off, and you're making a decision. In the case of an if statement, that decision was guided by an if statement, and it was guided by conditions, x equals 3 and y equals 2, and whatever that may be. In a switch statement, what you're doing is you're analyzing a single variable, and based on that variable and what that variable, the value of that variable, you can then branch off to different things. So in case 1, if it's true, you're going to do this. Case 2, it's going to do this, and so on and so on and so forth. And then sometimes, again, just like the else, you have this default statement. So here's your switch, there's your different cases, they're called, and then you have a default case. And after each one is finished, it then continues running through with the regular commands after that, the regular sequence. So this is the way you've learned to do decisions up till this point. You have your if statement. If x is greater than 10, which it's not, it will print high, otherwise it will do nothing. The problem with ifs is, quite frankly, that there isn't really a problem, except that to do certain things it can look a little bit long and cumbersome. So here, for example, in order to, if I have a single integer, and I want to do different things depending on the value of that integer, this can start to get a little bit cumbersome. Ignore that little typo there. So the switch statement is designed for that single thing, that single character, that single integer, that single kind of long, whatever that might be, and it allows you to more easily or more cleanly use that. So here's an example of what it looks like. This may not look so clean to you, but it is a little bit cleaner than an if statement. The key word here is switch. Switch is saying that I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to switch where I'm going depending on the value of this variable month. Month currently is 8. Then what the program will do is it will go line by line looking for a match. And so here I've gone to case 1, no match, no match, no match, no match, no match, no match. I found a match. It is going to do whatever I put inside here right up until it sees a break. And that's also a new command for you. And a break is a command that can be used to just exit out of whatever structure I'm in. So right now I'm in a switch statement. There's my beginning bracket, there's my ending bracket. Break says, I'm done with this, let me out. So what are the key words here that you have to remember? Well, switch is something new. The variable is not. It kind of looks like an if statement, except instead of having something that's Boolean, true or false, I'm able to make a switch depending on just the variable itself. The other key word is here case, and case is basically what is the value which I'm using to determine this move. And so this is actually the value it's looking for of this variable. If month is 1, do this. If month is 2, do that. That's what it's trying to get you to do. So we've got the switch, we've got the case. The default is something you don't have to have. But what happens if month is 13, or month is -1, or month is 0? That default will allow you to handle other things in a graceful manner. Other things that are important is this thing here called flow through. And flow through is a kind of a tricky concept to explain. I think I have an example, and maybe that's the best way. Look at this weird example. This is something you should sort of be able to follow along with. I have a month, and the month is 2. And over here I'm going to make a decision based on that month. And so what I've got here is a case 1, case 3, case 5, case 7, case 8, case 10, case 12. I don't have any code in here, but I also don't have a break. And until it sees a break, the code is going to continue running through looking for a case to follow. And so what this is saying, if I were to write this as an if statement, I would say if month is 1, or month is 3, or month is 5, or month is 7, or month is 8, or month is 10, or month is 12, set the number of days to be 31 and stop. Then over here I have another case. If it's 4 or 6 or 9 or 11, set the number of days to 30 and then break. And so then I can look at individual cases that I didn't cover, like 2, which would be February in this case. And so I have some logic here as to what happens in February. And this is now more of a traditional if statement because the logic is a little tricky. If the year is divisible by 4, or if the year is divisible by 100, or if the year is divisible by 400, then it's a leap year, yay. Otherwise, it's not. And then I break. And then I have a default, which basically just says, this ain't no month. This is what we call flow through. Without that break statement in here, the code will actually possibly execute multiple cases. In this case, 1 and 3 and 5 and 7 and 8 and 10 and 12. And this is something new that you didn't have to worry about with an if, is making sure you put in that break when you're done with it. In my courses, do I ever kind of force people to use a switch statement? No. I often use if statements instead of switch statements. I know some programmers that use switch statements all the time. It's very much a personal decision. But I do need you to know what the if statement is, so that if you're asked on a test, for example, or if you're given that code as an exemplar or as an example, you should really know what to do with it. So if you are following along with the lessons and the course, then you will see this occasionally. But it's not going to be required. It's another way to make a decision that can be, in some instances, more efficient than others. So I've jumped here into a Java program. And let's just collapse this so there's maybe more room for you to see. And it's a fairly simple program. Take a second and just look at it. Pause the video. Make sure you can sort of understand what's going on. Okay, so you should have been able to see a few strange things here. So let's just test this behavior out. And let's put in an age of 1. No output. So what's happened is it's tried to find a match for a case, no output, so nothing gets printed. Let's try another case, 13. Yay, you are a teenager. It went through, it found a matching case, it printed it, and then it was done. Now let's try a different case, and let's try someone who is 16. And this is where you're going to see behavior that you don't want. Because once it found a matching case, it continued down through the code until it looked for a break. Which means that it found this print line and printed it, it found this print line and printed it, and so on and so forth. And so that's where that break command comes important. So if I were to run this now and put in 16, it's only going to print that 1. If I put 18, it still wouldn't function properly. And so this is the general syntax of what your switch statement looks like. It starts here, it ends here. Any extra code after I'm done making those decisions goes under here. and then all of my individual cases I can put here. So this is another example of how you can have flow through of cases. I hope that helped. I mean, this is a bit of an advanced concept, but it isn't, right? Like, I'll often teach a course without teaching switch statements at all in some cases, which some people might be horrified about. But you can write your programs without it, but it offers some advantages, and so it's good to know. And hopefully this was a good explanation of it, or at least a good introduction, so that if you want to do it, you can have this for reference. We're getting into some more advanced topics really soon, so take a moment, reflect on what you've learned, and then we'll jump into the next video soon.